We're going to have a conversation with May Brooks-Kempler. And I'm honored. She's going to be my first lady guest in this conversation, which I'm having with several cybersecurity leaders across the world. So, May, you're one of the first to do that. And both of us shared very common professional activities. You were the first founding member of the Israel chapter. Then you served as a president, and
Yes.
I did the same. And I'm now the president of the Sri Lanka chapter. And you're also mentoring the UAE chapters. And I think today you and I mentor several chapters across the globe. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's a common. And both of us serve together in the chapter advisory committee with ISC Squared. You and I have also served in the Global Achievement Awards. Of course, you have served much more than I have on the committee to select the best chapters and identify those emerging budding cybersecurity professionals. And one thing which I'm very intrigued is that you have played a very significant role with IC2 is being part of the DEI task force, right?
Yes.
In several places, I mean, we hear the word diversity, equity, inclusion. And for me, I'm very proud to say that IC2 took that bold step to say we must do it. Right.
Yes.
And
Yes, we
I
did.
think both our chapters, we've been heavily focused on paying attention to this significant initiative. Right. And also, May currently serves as a director of CyberRange Solutions, based out of UAE. So I can't list all her experiences and her interactions. She's a internet personality where she has her podcast. She does similar talk shows with other professionals, and it's very unique where we are coming together on different time zones and talking about several things. So I consciously decided I'm not going to give this session any specific topic because we're going to talk about a range of things, right? A variety of things. So just get started off, May. I'm impressed, right? The question I want to ask, right? I'm actually visualizing you as a role model for those people who are probably thinking of a career in cybersecurity. And there could be others who are just trying to come back to the workforce after career break. Could you share your experience, your journey? What has taken you to get where you are today? May, over to you.
Oh, that's a great question. I think that if I had to summarize it in one word, that word would be passion. I am absolutely in love with cybersecurity. I actually got to the field completely by chance. I was serving, I'm from Israel. I served in the IDF for several years. I was there almost 6 years. And when I was supposed to leave the army, I already served my full term and 2 more years at that point. And I was going to leave the army. And then one of my friends told me, "We're starting up a new unit doing information security. Do you want in?" Yeah, that sounds great, but what's that? I mean, I had zero knowledge of what cybersecurity, information security back then was, and I was completely sure at that point in my life that I was going to be a doctor. I actually started my BSc in biology because I was so convinced was going to be a doctor. So I was already studying in my free time. There is no free time when you're an IDF officer, but still, I had a little bit of free time. So I started studying because I wanted to go to medical school. And then I started working in information security, and I completely fell in love with it. I find it to this day, and it's been over 20 years, I find it absolutely fascinating. I always loved technology. That's not something new. But the combination, I see information security both as an enabler and a protector. And that combination between technology and business and risk and everything is just fascinating. I think there's something in it for everyone. I know that a lot of people hear cybersecurity and they think they have to get a black hoodie and start writing code. Not necessarily. I hate writing code. I'm a terrible, terrible, terrible programmer. Actually, I think that today I couldn't write a piece of code to save my life, if I'm being very honest. But I have other skills. I'm a very good social engineer. So I can get into that sort of mindset and understand social engineering to a degree that I can protect against social engineering. I love doing risk management. I know that a lot of people hate it. I absolutely love that. That's like make believe. Let's sit around and think about the threat landscape and look at this company and understand the business of that company and try to think where the threat can come from, not just from a technological point of view, because for me, the technology was always the easy side. I mean, if I have this system, then I know that I have these vulnerabilities. It's not simple, but it's straightforward. But trying to understand the threat landscape, I always find it fascinating because you have to have a very good technological understanding, but also a very good business understanding and global influences understanding. So I love that. I absolutely love that.
Excellent. Now, I mean, before I started this session, when I was actually trying to build your introduction, I didn't know that you had studied biology, right? And I keep telling everyone, cybersecurity is not for those people who study IT or software. Cybersecurity
Yeah.
is for everyone. And here we go. I mean, you are a classic example for those people who are studying other fields of maybe engineering, medicine, or history, geography, yet they can actually embark on a career in cybersecurity. So, I mean, I'm just going to shift the focus. I mean, you also shifted focus on the human factor, and you from the human factor, and you founded Helena, the consulting firm, right? Now, your role in the task force for DEI, that is also to do with human factor. It's not something you put on paper and say, hey, we got diversity, we got equity, we got inclusion. Share with those people who are going to listen to this recording, what's that human factor which comes into play in DEI?
Well, I think that today, I know that now I'm going to be on IC is blacklist. No, I know that according to the workforce study, which I also contributed to with IC, they got to the conclusion that we have about 24% women in cybersecurity. Now, focus on women right now, but diversity is for everyone. Um, and I actually went on stage in InfoSec in London a few years back with IC2 talking about diversity and talking about the workforce. And I said, I'm sorry, I've been part of this task force. I've seen the study, but look around you. We don't have 24%
Present.
women. We have about 12% to this day, maybe 15% if we're pushing it. We have 24% in the early stages. Only women who are very passionate about cybersecurity and are really interested in cybersecurity and didn't just choose it as a default because someone told them you can make money in cybersecurity, because I see that a lot as well. Only they survive right now. And I think that is what needs to change when we talk about DEI. And again, it's not just about women, it's about people of minorities, people of color, people of determination. We are not a diverse industry. If we look at the majority of the industry, and I think that saying this in this conversation is a little bit funny, but if we look at the majority of this industry, is middle-aged white men, if I'm being very honest. And on the other side, the hackers are not middle-aged white men. And I think the diversity is crucial for us to have that broader background, which will enable us to detect emerging threats, to think like the other side. So I think it's crucial. And if we're talking about diversity, if we're talking about DEI, helping people get into this business and stay in this business, and you're talking about the human side, it's about how we treat them. It's about, no, not everyone is equal. Not because they're not equal, they are equal, but they're not built the same. And I've been the only woman in the room for the majority of my adult life. Even when I was in the IDF, which is, by the way, great in inclusion, we weren't too many women. in this department, when I'm talking about information security. In my previous roles as IT, as technology, intelligence, whatever, we were always, I wouldn't say 50-50, it depends which role. Some roles there were more women than men. But in general, it was usually around the same numbers. When I got to information security, however, it was about, I would say, maybe 20-25%. I'm still in touch with most people that served with me. And unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, none of the women stayed in the field. A lot of the men did. Not all of the men, because obviously when you're 18 to 20, 22, you're not always choosing this as a career. The same way I fell in love with it, not everyone did. But unfortunately, I'm the only woman who stayed. And I can understand why, because it's not easy always being the only woman in the room. It's not easy standing backstage before I give a keynote and someone comes over to me and tells me, you know that we're out of drinks? Okay, why are you telling me? Oh, aren't you from the production team? No, I'm actually the keynote speaker, thank you. But it happened so many times. So I treated it with humor, but I treated it with humor after 20 years. When I was 5 years, 10 years in the industry, I would never speak up. I never felt that I could speak up. I always felt, and I didn't just feel it because of me and because of my imposter syndrome, though I do have imposter syndrome, I think like the majority of women and a lot of men as well. But it was because I never felt that I could speak up. Because every time I did, someone would like, oh, that little girl, she doesn't understand anything. They didn't say that to the little boy. They said that to the little girl. So I think that we should all be more aware of the way we talk to one another, the way we speak to one another, and I understand that diversity is actually key for our success. So I really think that's crucial.
Absolutely. I have a follow-up question on that. Right now, the numbers are so small. I mean, even when I look at my own board, I have only two ladies in the board, and that too with great difficulty. And both these ladies are currently overseas, right? And when they wanted to leave the board, I said, no, you're not leaving. You stay wherever you are. We will do this virtually. Because if I let them go and I lose my opportunity to, showcase their talent and what they are doing in their roles, right? So that's a big challenge. And also, one of the things which I've also done is that wherever possible, I insist there is at least one lady in all the panels I join. In rare occasions when they can't find anybody, I said, okay, but I tell them you need to encourage, right? If you
Yeah.
can't find the person talking on the subject, I tell them modify the topic because you can merge two topics and have a conversation. Cybersecurity and human resources, cybersecurity and psychology, right? So it's all to do with the human factor. Kim, I mean, I just want you to tell us what were the challenges like? I mean, talk from the
Mm.
perspective to those young girls or the ladies who are yet to decide, or they're probably trying to decide which way to go. So, if you can talk from that perspective about the challenges and what they should do to grow themselves in this field, because we need greater representation at all levels. Me?
Yes, so thank you for that. First, I want to follow up on what you said about diversity in panels and speaking engagements. Unfortunately, that's something that I'm working on a lot in Israel, and not just in Israel, as a mentor. Um, I am not a natural public speaker. I mean, if people think I am, people saw my TEDx talk and say, "What? You're incredible on stage," and thank you very much. But this is not something that came naturally to me. I hated public speaking. I didn't want to do public speaking. At some point, I realized that if I stay in my comfort zone and I don't do it, and she stays in her comfort zone and she doesn't do it, and she will stay in her comfort zone and she doesn't do it, we can't really expect people to give us the opportunity. And when people ask me, can you speak in an event, whatever, I try to say yes unless there's a really good reason why I can't, or at least I will try to find someone else who can, because now I don't live in Israel anymore, so it's much harder. And I try to mentor girls. And unfortunately, when I reach out, and I'm in many cyber ladies groups, including Leading Cyber Ladies, that was founded by Karen Al-Azari and Ruth Menashe and Hila Miller, of course, and they're doing a wonderful job. And I'm in other endeavors as well. A lot of women are afraid to speak up. And there are many reasons for that. And we won't go into the psychology because I'm not a psychologist, I'm a cybersecurity professional. But I think that we all, and I'm talking, and here I speak out and ask the more senior, seasoned cybersecurity ladies out there, please do. You do know what you're talking about. And if we avoid that, if women can't see, there's a quote that I absolutely love about that. You can't be what you can't see. If young women, if young girls looking at the industry will not see women in lead roles in cybersecurity, they will not even consider that as a valid option for them. So I think that when we speak up, it's not about me, it's about the community, it's about giving back. So I just wanted to touch upon that. And when you talked about challenges, I don't think it's unique just to being a woman. I think it's every young person going into a certain field, they don't know how their career will pan out, especially in a field like cybersecurity that is so new, relatively speaking. I mean, if you want to be, let's say, in the medical field, if I want to be an orthopedic surgeon, I know that the first thing I have to do is go to medical school. And then I will have to apply for residency in orthopedics. And after my residency, hopefully I will be an orthopedic surgeon. But in cybersecurity, let's say I want to be a CISO. Should I start by learning penetration testing? Should I be a SOC analyst? Should I know programming? Maybe I should come from the business side. Maybe I should be a GRC consultant. No one knows. There is no clear career pathway, which is an advantage and a disadvantage. It's sort of a two-edged sword, because you can go through different routes. So I think that the key is, first of all, understanding the industry, trying to understand the different roles in cybersecurity, and be brutally honest with yourself. I mean, I wasn't brutally honest with myself. I started off as a penetration tester. Now, I didn't know any better at the time, but my personality is absolutely wrong for penetration testing. I like working with people. I like looking at the bigger picture. I don't like diving into the nitty-gritty details. It's not good or bad, that's just who I am. So I could never be a very good penetration tester. When I work with people starting out in the industry today, I try to ask them these questions about their personalities to try and direct them in the right path. So that's definitely something that people should consider. And speaking about my personal challenges, there's a book that I absolutely love, and it was really an eye-opener. I think that every woman in every industry should read it. I think most men should read it as well. It's called Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, who used to be the COO of Facebook. And one of the things that really resonated when I read this book was that women, and it's based on studies, women tend to make career choices that will support being wives and mothers long before they have a significant other. And when I read that, I was like, oh my God, I did that. I stopped being a pre-sale engineer when my eldest daughter was born, because under my perspective was, oh, you can't be a pre-sale engineer and be a mother. It's impossible, because my next role, I was then working for a very large ISP. And I said, well, the next step will be working for a vendor, and then I will have to travel the world. And no, you can't do that as a mother. Why not? Why not? Who says you have to travel the world, especially today? Now, and I think that the world has also changed. Men want to have a more active role in growing their kids today. So I think that we shouldn't stop ourselves at an early age just because we think that that might impact our ability to be the parents we want, the spouses we want. I think that there are so many options today, and you can sort of build your own career and direct it in your own direction. So don't be afraid to do that, because I was afraid, and that's definitely something that I'm not anymore. So I think that's a key point.
Sure, I think fear is, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, and I think that's always there. And I also reflect the same thoughts as you. Every time I'm invited to speak, I still have my butterflies, no matter how good we think we are, right? I mean, people may say that we are good, but we know how much it takes to get there, right? And I see that in you as well. And I think the very important thing what you said was look at options, see where you can grow, right? And I'm sure everybody would love to support each other and help them grow. And I think today, when you look at organizations, organizations are built on the principle of collaboration, right? And it definitely can work in families as well and in other societies as well. And I think that's what we are looking at. So I'm just going to take this conversation from that to an organization. You have advised several organizations and you have interacted with different layers of people. How do you see going forward from here? And I think that there's a lot happening in the world. Every minute is a new reality, a reality which we have not thought of, right? And I think everybody is now talking about resilience, knowing the meaning or not knowing the meaning, and every conversation is about resilience.
Yeah.
What would your conversation be if you were to talk to the C-suite or the board of directors, right? What would you tell them that they need to do from a cybersecurity perspective? Me?
Oh, that's a great question, a very broad question. Um, when I talk to the board, and I do that a lot, I consult board of directors, I do C-suite conversations all the time. The first thing I always ask them is about the business. I'm trying to understand the business perspective, because it's very different if you're a startup I don't know, if you're a biotech startup than if you're a traditional bank. These are very different industries. It also matters where you are in your maturity level, what kind of funds you have, what sort of reputation you have. Because even if look at a bank. I was recently working for a digital bank based in the UAE. And we knew, when I was mapping out the risks for this bank, I said, okay, we don't have a very long reputation because we just started. So if one of the bigger banks that is well established gets a data breach, it will be bad. People will be very upset. But it won't necessarily break people's confidence in working with that bank. But if I look at a new digital bank without a long legacy of well-known people working there with them, such a breach that will be probably of lower impact than a big bank would be devastating, especially because when you're a digital bank, you're building a trust and you're all based on the digital world. Like, if I want to take out money from my digital bank account, there are no branches, it's all online. So I think that's a different perspective. And I think that the first thing that as cybersecurity professionals we have to do is understand the business and the business landscape and the competitiveness of that specific industry that we're in, of those who are our direct competitors, which is, by the way, one of the reasons that when I used to teach CISOs, the first question I asked them was, who here has an MBA? And there was always someone clever raising their hand and saying, didn't you mean an MSc? No, if you have an MSc, that's great, I'm happy for you. But those are not the skills that I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who will understand business, will be able to speak to the board of directors in their own language. So when I talk about resiliency, and unfortunately I still consult a lot of CISOs and I do a lot of talks with people in this industry, and sometimes I will also see, okay, so which company you work for? They tell me, okay, and what is it that you do? And maybe they know to give me the elevator pitch. Some of them don't. Some of them will tell me, oh, we're a high-tech company. And what do? We're a high-tech company. No, that's not good. We have to understand the business side. And when we talk about resiliency, you also have to understand a little bit about psychology, because different boards have different risk appetites. It's based on their actual financial resilience. That is part of the equation. And if you look at huge incidents like Saudi Aramco, if the same incident happened to a smaller company or a less financially resilient company, they would never survive. But Saudi Aramco has such deep pockets that they were able to grow from it. So obviously, and I don't know anyone in Saudi Aramco, I'm assuming, but I would imagine that the risk appetite that a company like that with such incredible financial resilience has is very different from a struggling company. So usually when I start conversations with the board of directors, or even before, next month I have a talk with a board of directors of a very large financial company in Israel. And one of the things that I'm doing from my side before building the presentation is researching the company, understanding they're a publicly traded company. So I'm trying to understand the diversity of their business, because they have a lot of different companies under their supervision, under the group. And I'm trying to understand their resilience, understand where they're coming from. And then I can talk about cybersecurity in a way that pertains to this specific business, because it's not the same conversation in this business and in that business.
Absolutely, May. I mean, those are very important factors, right? Knowing what you do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can get any technology and you can implement it, but what is that you do as a business? Do people understand that? Do you want to build resilience to continue your business so that irrespective of what happens or how the threat landscape changes, you can still continue operations? One last question, May. You're a candidate for the board elections with the ISC2. What prompted you, or what is actually running through your mind, right? I mean, I don't have a structured question to ask you, but I'm definitely asking you, what are we going to get as members, right?
So I think that's exactly the reason. As you said in the introduction, I've been heavily involved with IC2 for many years, from being an instructor to being a co-author of CISSP and 8ZIP to serving in different committees. I've also been a speaker with them several times, and I absolutely love IC2. And I think that being part of IC2 is one of the things that made my relocation to the UAE much easier. When my husband came up with the idea and he said, I got an offer to move to the UAE, and he was sure I was going to say absolutely not, because my career in Israel was very well established. I had my own business, business was blooming, everything was great. And I said, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. It's an adventure. And he looked at me, are you serious? What are you going to do? I don't know. I'll figure it out. And the reason I felt so confident that I would figure it out is my international contacts. I knew that there was a chapter here. So one of the first things I've done was to reach out to that chapter and ask them, can I join? Can I network via your network? And I did the same with other communities as well. And so for me, when I knew that they're taking up board nominees, a few people asked me, are you going to do it this time? And you know what? Yes, I am. Because I want to see ISC2 offer more opportunities to members locally and globally. I think that ISC2 is doing an amazing job in really becoming a global influencer. When I joined ISC2, which is almost 10 years ago, it was really US-centric. I mean, as someone coming from EMEA, I didn't feel that even the content of the courses, I didn't really feel that it took anything outside the US into account. When I took the HSIP exam, for example, it was about 2 years after I took the CISSP, it was all HIPAA focused. Now, because I worked with companies in the US, I didn't mind, but when they came up to me and said, would you like to be a co-author of the new version? I said absolutely yes, and I knew that the reason they approached me was the fact that they knew that they wanted a more diverse content layout. They wanted to have people from different areas in the world because we face different challenges. For me as an Israeli or someone in the UAE as well, when I say an enterprise, I'm talking about a company with 1,000, maybe 2,000 employees. That's an SMB in the US. So budget is different, risks are different, everything is different. So I do want to see ISC2 go in a more global direction. I think they're doing a good job. I would like to see it more. I would like to see ISC2 give members additional opportunities to grow, and for that I do want to see ISC2 offer clear career paths. I think that today, when you look at ISC and our very broad range of certifications, they're sort of each stands alone. You have the HSIP for healthcare, you have the CISSP, you have the cloud, but you don't have a clear career path. For me, as being someone who's been certified for almost 10 years, I'm asking, okay, what's next? Yes, there are the concentration, but what's next? There are a lot of things that I want to learn, and I do want to have some sort of certification for it, because if you learn something, you want to show it later. But I don't think that IC2 is really offering that. And when I look at people starting out in the industry, I think that CC, Certified in Cybersecurity, is fantastic. It's a phenomenal idea by IC. But again, if you do the CC, what's next? And CC, just like CISSP, is very broad. So I do want to see IC2 offer a more clear pathway throughout someone's career path. I do want to see more offerings to members, active members. There are a lot of opportunities. I don't think the communication to current members is good enough. I know that even me working with ISC, I miss a lot of things because their communication is not the best, if I say the least, unfortunately. I have 3 emails with ISC2, one as an instructor, one my personal one for my CPEs and everything, and one as an OTP. And I try to combine them, no way. So each time I want something on the ISC platform, I'm like, which platform do I need to approach? Which user do I need to use? It's hard. So I do want to see these things consolidated. And something near and dear to my heart, I want to see the chapters grow. I want to see them thrive. I want to see them collaborate with different chapters in the same region and globally. I think that these are things that IC2 can do better to support. I know that you, and we had a lot of conversations around that in the chapter advisory committee. I know that you share my opinion that as an organization, IC2 can and should offer more support to chapters. I mean, even if there's a chapter portal and not every chapter will build their own website, even look at the website. It's not a big cost, but you still have to pay for the domain. You still have to pay for storage. Someone has to build the actual website. I think that if ISC will offer sort of, let's say, isc2.org/Chapters/Israel/UAE/Sri Lanka/whatever, I think it will make life much easier if we have sort of a consolidated way. So, for example, when I moved from Israel to the UAE, I had to actively look for the chapter. It wasn't that straightforward and easy. And when I look at the chapter website, and we have a great website both here and in Israel, it's different. And when I do a lot of these conversations with different chapters around the world, and whenever I go online, oh, this chapter has a very nice website. Maybe we can copy this part. Why? Why not work together? I mean, we are under one global organization. So if I sum it up, why I'm going to the board, well, first of all, I'm a very hyperactive person. I have a lot of interests. Ooh, squirrel. So I try to keep busy. It keeps me out of trouble. So when I'm busy, I'm out of trouble, usually. It felt like a natural next step. So I do want to see IC2 grow. I've been a trainer for many years. I want to see clear career paths. I want to see global collaborations, and I want to see the chapters grow and thrive.
Mate, that's a huge list of things to do, right? And I think, right, I mean, we are doing those things in little ways in our own committees, wherever we are collaborating together. And I think we are making significant progress in all these things, right? Some of these things We can't do it overnight, but definitely uh, as members of ISU2, and I think we are rallying around Claire to get Claire and the other board members and the new board to come into being. And I am sure all the chapters would love to hear I mean, see it in reality, whatever you just spoke about, right? So website definitely is something which they would want to have a simple internet presence. So, May, it's been absolutely awesome talking to you. But before wrap this event up, I just want you to share one thought which you would want to leave with all those young people who are still trying to decide. One thought, what should they do?
One thought. Be kinder to yourselves. It's okay. You will never know everything in cybersecurity. Don't fuss about it. It's fine. I know every time I say, "Oh, I really want to dive into something," and I always ask myself, "Is it relevant to my position?" Yes, I would. I have access to a lot of trainings because of my work, and sometimes I say, "Wow, I really feel like going back to penetration testing and let's do a few labs," and then, why? That's not my role. I'm not going to be a penetration tester anymore. So there's no point in me wasting my time there. There are things that I can do with my time that will be better, that will have more impact. So be kinder to yourself. Understand that you will never know everything, and try to understand who you are and what will make you happy. I think at the end of the day, if for me, my work is not something that I have to do, it's something that I want to do. I know that in coaching there's a question, would you do it even if no one pays you? And the answer for me is yes, please continue paying me. But honestly,
Absolutely.
99% of what I do, yeah, 99% of what I do are things that I would do even if no one paid me to do them. I enjoy myself. I love it. And if you enjoy what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
Absolutely. Enjoy what you do. Irrespective, money can be found anytime, but be passionate about what you do,
Yeah,
discover yourself, stay focused, don't fret. Right, so that's what I'm going to take for myself. Again, that was very refreshing. So May, thank you so much for sharing diverse things. I think we spoke on several topics, and it has
yes.
been very enlightening, and I'm sure those people who are going to watch the recording would definitely gain out of this. So, on behalf of ISU2
Thank
Colombo chapter and the board, we wish you the very best for the board elections,
you.
and we'd love to see you taking on a role. Right? And I look forward
Thank
to
you
working
so
with
much.
you, whether you are in the board or not. We will still continue to serve in whichever way capacities we would and collaborate globally. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, mate.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure and all the best. And thank you. Take care.
Thank you.